Welcome to When Women Speak, Voices from Whisper, Whisper, Shout. I am your host, Amira Shabazz Bilal, poet, visual storyteller, and founder of When Women Speak, a platform where women's voices rise with power, tenderness, and truth. Today, I'm honored to sit with two of our most phenomenal contributors to our newest anthology, Whisper, Whisper, Shout, which is a collection of raw, resilient, and radiant poetry from women across the globe. Let's welcome Dr. Helena Lewis and Leah Lyric Jackson to our stage. I have the resume of Dr. Helena D. Lewis in front of me. She is an award winning actress, poet, and playwright. She is known for her play, Shenanigans. Helena's third person show was called a theatrical masterpiece by the Amsterdam News and was produced at the Wild Project Theater in New York. Shenanigans was nominated for an Adelco for 2019 Best Solo Performance. Helena was the 2019 Downtown Urban Arts Festival Playwright in Residence and is currently working on her fourth one person show, We Are Still Human, based on 20 years of experience working with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women. We also have with us Leah Lyric Jackson. Leah is an advocate, mother, counselor, poet, and performer, a writer since the age of 9. She has shared stages with renowned poets and artists, including Jessica Care Moore and Reggie Gaines. Lyric, a 1998 New Yorican Poets Cafe Grand Slam semifinalist, has been featured in Geraldine Dodge Poetry Festival and in the global exhibition Whitman on Walls. Her book Release sold out quickly, and she published A Journey from Release in 2016. Lyric co-produces social justice art exhibitions and plays such as Say Her Name Newark and Trauma Drama, exploring violence against Black women. She founded Elysium Outreach and Connections, providing therapy and advocacy in the New York City metro area. A proud mother of two, her advocacy for autism awareness stems from her son Nikin's diagnosis. Lyric continues to involve her creative expressions, including her hand-sewn items under soulful stitching. Wow, that was definitely a tongue twister for me. I, even though I know both of you, every time I read about you or every time I'm in your presence, I'm awed with what you come with, meaning your history, what you've been through, where you've been, and that road that you traveled down and where you are now. And I'm looking at both of you. You are the most sincere, honest people that I know in this area of poetry, the poetry community. So, Dr. Helena, Shenanigans is not your only stage play. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've been doing in that area?
It was like 2022, 2023. I was at the New Yorican Poets Cafe and I was approached by Mark Newell from Arcos Entertainment. And he asked me at that time if I had a play because they were doing the Downtown Urban Arts Theater Festival. And I was like, yeah, I got a play. I ain't had no play. I
Now
just had the
I have
title.
to interrupt her because I think you said 2023. I think you mean 2003.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
2003.
Leah, you ain't right. You ain't right.
I was like, wait a minute, hold on. I can remember
2003.
correctly.
2003. And I always said I was going to write a play and I was going to call it like Just Me. And so when he said that to me, I said, oh, I have a place called Just Me. I just had the title and I knew how I wanted the t-shirts. I had nothing else. And I remember I said, well, I guess he booked me on the spot. And I was like, I gotta go home and write a play. And I took 2 days off from work and a couple other days, and I just pinned out what I thought was my truth that made me just me, you know. And it was funny because Steve Donaldson and KO came to the show, and it was like Steve was like, "Yo, dog." He's like, "When you said you had a play, I thought you was just doing a long ass feature. I didn't know that you wrote a play." And what I remember the most from that journey, right, was Bob Holman booking it for the Bowery Poetry Club and how it grew a little bit. And then me starting to take playwright classes and learning about arcs and high knees and wrists and all this jazz. And then I got booked to go to the National Black Theater Festival in Winston-Salem, North Carolina to co-host the National Black Theater Festival Midnight Poetry Jams with Malcolm Jamar Warner. And the way it was explained to me was they wanted another poet who was of the community to be with Malcolm so that the community knew that, hey, we are embracing Malcolm as a poet. He's one of us, which he really is. He has such a kind soul. You could not want to meet a nicer person. Michael Jamal Warner, whoever you are, it's your girl, right?
Shout
So
out.
that exposed me to playwrights from across the country. Almost every Black theater was down there. Almost every Black actor that I've ever seen on TV was down there. And I got to go around and see different shows. And I was like, yo, I got to step my game up.
Mm.
And when I was asked again by Arcos Entertainment a few years later to write another play, I said, I'm going to write about my job. And it was called Call Me Crazy. And after that, I went on like a 13-year run with Call Me Crazy at the New Rican Poets Cafe. I even sold out to Schaumburg. All these social workers came to see little old me. When Arcos contacted me again, do you have another show? And I was like, yes, Shenanigans. Like I knew when my mother passed away that I wanted to write this story, but it just wasn't ready to come out. And when the opportunity presented itself, I just sat down and I wrote it in about 30 days. And Lyric also produced it at the school she was affiliated with. We had like a 2 days run around Mother's Day. It was really cute. And taking the acting classes, being exposed to people, seeing what other people are doing, reading, everything you get your hands on, all of that informs what you write. And I write from an autoethnographic point of view. So a lot of the things that I write about definitely start with me and I tease them out into larger narratives. What I'm doing with my new play, We Are Still Human, as I'm actually taking the qualitative interviews that I did with the ladies and incorporating them into the show. What I like about qualitative work is now it's not just my voice I'm talking about. I'm talking about other people who have been impacted by mass incarceration and mental health and their journey back into reentry. And I get to look at it from the social work perspective, the researcher in me, which I didn't know I was a researcher, the researcher in me, and from their lens to pen this beautiful work of hope.
That's an amazing story, and I'm surprised that you were able to finish that in the time allowed it here, because like that story in itself could be like a short documentary on the
Yeah.
life of HDL, because you've gone the entire route, like stage plays, New York Cafe, poet, university speaker, workshop. Girl, what haven't you done? Don't That's rhetorical. Don't answer. But the point is that when people see you, they already know there's an air about you, but what they don't know is who Dr. HDL really is. And I really appreciate you sharing all of what you just said. And I just want to plug my own self. I sat in the audience for Call Me Crazy several times. I brought people back to see the play. Before she even knew who I was in the front seat at the New Yorker. She's like, oh, come on, I have something for you, with a little squeaky voice. And I was like, oh, she knows my name. She knows my name. We don't even know when we began being friends. To tell you,
No, I don't. As one day
we
you
don't,
was just
we
there.
like, "Hey, Mira." I was like, oh, she knows me. But and then I wear the little button, "Call Me Crazy" to school, and my T-shirt, and my kids were like, "Call you crazy? Will we get in trouble?" I just want you to know that I appreciate you. I'm going to move to Leah. Things in this resume that I had no idea. The same with Helena. You guys are like, you're amazing. I want to talk a little bit about this hand sewn items under soulful stitching. Now, I want to say soulful, but it's so like SEW.
SEW.
And
Mhm.
that's what's tripping me up when I read it, but it still sounds the same, right? Soulful.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
2019 was a transition year for me. My father, a diagnosis of cancer, his second diagnosis in his lifetime of cancer. And this time, the end of January, he had started to become sick, and things were just like, it was like 1 week, it was something, and then the next week, and then he got the diagnosis of thoracic cancer, and his just everything started debilitating. And working full time at New Jersey City University, I had been there for over a decade, and it just wasn't lining up with me being able to help my mother take care of my father at that time. So that whole entire year I spent transitioning to become his full-time caretaker. And after that, and my relationship with my father is very complicated and intense. We became pretty much, it was like a symbiotic kind of relationship, and it kind of mirrored, and when I think about it, it mirrored my relationship with him when I first was born, because he took care of me the first like year of my life. My mother worked primarily during the day and my father worked at night, so he took care of me during the day, and it kind of became like where I was taking care of him. And then at the end of 2019, unfortunately, he passed away, and that was unexpected, and it just was going through, a whole lot of different emotions. So getting to 2020, we end up having this crazy pandemic. Now, we had already been kind of like sequestered. I was already sequestered at the time I was going through my spiritual process, and I became initiated into the Yoruba tradition of Lukumi, and I was a Yawo. So basically, I wasn't even participating with anybody or anything. So anyway, my father passes and we go into this pandemic. Everybody is, sequestered and shut down. And I was in therapy and my therapist was asking me, what hobbies do you have? And I was saying to her, well, I write. She said, no, no, Leah, that's what you do. Just like you're a counselor, you're a therapist, that's what you do. That's not a hobby for you. And I said, well, I really enjoy sewing. I sewed my son's Halloween costume when he was like 12, 13 years old. He wanted to be Spawn. And at the time, and if you know, Spawn has like this big red cape and all this stuff for that. So I sewed this thing for him. It took me about a week and a half, but I sewed it by hand. All right. It was very therapeutic, that just the whole sewing, right? So I ended up finding some clothes that my father had been given from Nigeria from his sister in the closet, and I started taking apart the clothing so I could have the material, and I started sewing them together and making pillows.
Mm.
And I ended up was like, I'm going to give this to my sister. I'm going to give this to my aunt. I'm going to give this as a way to kind of remember my father. And I found myself sewing more and more pillows. Then my brother-in-law brought a bunch of material for me, and I just ended up sewing. Then I started making bags. Then I started buying beads from I went to start Michael started being my favorite place in the world. And
Mhm.
then I started making jewelry. And I was just doing this during the pandemic as a way to just kind of like work through my own grief, but also make something that was intentional. So when I was looking for just peace, that's what I would do. I would take it to a needle and thread, put my music on, and just, sew. I ended up making all types of art with something that I had never explored before ever in my life. So that came out of just an intentional thing to pass the time, but also to make it intentional for my expression of working through my grief and the loss of somebody who was significant in my life, and also making gifts for my family that brought a piece of him to them.
That's fabulous, Leah. The things that I learned about you guys, I mean, I had no idea. I'm also looking at the fact that you do art exhibits for social justice and activism. What is that?
I'm a natural born agitator. I put that in my moniker, that I'm an agitator. One of my favorite, there's a quote by Frederick Douglass that talks about, if you don't agitate the field, you're not going to get crops to grow.
Mm.
So you need to always be doing something to promote. So one of the ways that I have always done this is by partnering with other like-minded individuals. So Kim Ford is one of my longtime collaborators, and oftentimes when we're looking at not just what's going on in the world, but also as a clinician, I'm looking at how can I, what I'm doing, help others,
Mhm.
just
Absolutely.
in general, help others. So with the social justice aspect, I've been able to not only do the multimedia exhibition with Say Her Name Newark, and hopefully we'll be doing more with that and giving word to power when it comes to specifically young girls and young women stories and women's stories, not just about the violence that has been done, but also how we are transforming that violence into healing, into progressive work. And then the social justice is I've always been an activist. I've always not only done progressive work, but also organizing, went from college into my young adulthood, and even as a mother, with autism awareness and with and working with young people in NJCU, looking at everything from a position of how am I going to change my part of the world? How am I going to change this part of the world? And a lot of that is speaking up, producing works by Helena Lewis, and also I produced another poet who is also a performer, Jeff DeSeuss. His work was called Deep Breath, and he wrote it um, in in reaction to the death of Eric Garner. And before we had George Floyd, we had Eric Garner, in terms of this video of watching a man be murdered by the police, like watching it in real time. And that gave birth to his work. And so where I stand is in promotion, in collaboration, in partnership with anyone who is about progressive movement, about freeing minds, freeing people, and humanity, bringing humanity to the conversation, a face, a voice, and all of the things that go along with that. That encompasses social justice is really just about making sure that we're all having the right to be and the right to exist without anybody oppressing us, putting obstacles in our way, or even confining us to what they feel their definition of us is.
Absolutely. This is amazing. And when we talk about women speaking, both of you are definitely out there speaking and have been for many, many years. Not to make that sound like you guys are old or anything like that, but you come with a history of speaking and speaking out for women. I know that this is about the new anthology from When Women Speak, Whisper, Whisper, Shout. Did you guys get your copies?
Yes, we did.
Oh my God. Tell me that cover isn't amazing. Tell me
It
that
is.
it isn't brilliant.
Yeah, this
The
is a
cover
really
is
beautiful.
fire. As soon as I saw, you have to put it on a t-shirt.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
we
love it.
do. I just want to say
yeah,
a little bit about the cover. Of course, the anthology is based on 80 women poets' voices, 80 from When Women
that,
Speak
that's amazing.
collaborative. But we now brought in an aspect of visual arts to the When Women Speak group, meaning Sister Linda Mickens, who's a sculptor, actually sculpted a piece called Redemption. I was at an art exhibit and I took a picture because I'm a photographer. I took a picture of Linda's work, and what you see on the cover is my image of Sister Linda's sculpture, Redemption. And while I was putting together all of our poems, I said, "This is Whisper, Whisper, Shout." And that image, that sculpture, it just stuck in my brain. I was like, there is no other image that could better tell the story without them opening the book than
Right.
that particular picture. And I want to
Absolutely.
shout out Sister Linda because she did
You did it.
agree to allow us to use that image. It is her sculpture. And we want to support everybody in whatever act of creativity they have. She is a beast in
Yes.
terms of being an artistic shero of all
Mhm.
time. So shout out to Sister Linda Mickens. We're going to hear some poetry now. And I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Dr. Helena Lewis to select one of her poems out of the anthology Whisper, Whisper, Shout and share it with us.
Is on page 174. Black boys learn different. They learn punishment. They learn pain. They learn conformity. They don't learn freedom. They don't learn joy. That barefoot in grass, running with your face towards the sun, eyes on the future, that 21st birthday surrounded by loved ones, complete with hugs from father and mother, nana and papa. Black boys learn different. They learn trauma. They learn not to speak about it. They learn how to hold it in and pass it on and how to let it manifest. Insert high blood pressure, insert ulcers, insert drug use, insert suicide, insert prison. Black boys learn different. They don't learn healing. They don't learn forgiveness. That forgiveness that comes with white faces and generational wealth and lawyers that are not public defenders. Black boys learn different. They learn disappointment. They learn unfair. State and SBI numbers, two with a three flat and mandatory minimums. They learn how to survive but not live. They learn the ticking of time behind bars. They learn inmate. They learn felony convictions. They learn loneliness. They learn depression. They learn abandonment. They learn anger. They learn stress. They learn suspension for school and prison to school pipelines. They learn to accept the fact that they will most likely be misunderstood and murdered before a fair trial. Black boys learn different. They learn former presidents with 34 felony convictions would take out full page ads demanding execution instead of exoneration. They learn less than. They learn pain. They learn like George Stickney Jr., who at the age of 14 and 6 months in 1944, in an unfair trial by adult white male peers, your 90-pound frame will be too small for an electric chair, but that won't stop the switch from being flipped. Black boys learn different. They learn Ritalin. They learn ADHD diagnosis. They learn overly medicated. They learn how to forget who they were meant to be. They learn fear. They learn the holding of pocketbooks in elevators. They learn how to Montgomery brawl. Black boys learn different. They learn different. They learn different, but they don't learn love. They don't learn peace, to never learn to be Black and free.
Oh, okay. So we
Thank
got to take
you.
a deep breath from that one. Um,
Powerful.
we'll say that reading that poem on this platform, it's a little different than actually seeing you with full energy and your animation on a stage, which I have seen you perform this poem, and the audience, as we are now, was always left breathless. Everybody could connect, whether they were a black boy, had a black boy, or have seen black boys. They understand this. And this poem, it's haunting, it's raw, it's fiercely truthful. It interrogates the systematic injustices and emotional inheritances. These things shape the lives of black boys in America with brutal honesty. And with this poem, you map out a curriculum of survival also that replaces the joy with the trauma. It replaces freedom with incarceration, or vice versa. I should be saying it differently. And it also talks about the premature loss of innocence in childhood, which is a specific thing for the black group of people that we all belong to on this platform.
Mhm.
Just comes from a deep place in the gut. So I guess my question would be, in this poem, you list everything that black boys are taught by the world. What, in your view, must we unlearn as a society to make space for black boys to finally learn how to love, how to have peace, and how to have freedom? What do you think that would be? Or what would that look like?
Well, first, there's no easy answers to any of this. While we're talking about this, like, so here we are in the United States of America, and we are still being impacted by colonialism and the peculiar institution. So many of our educators are people who are not of color. And because we don't have individuals who are looking like us, teaching us and honoring us and looking for the nuances in our struggles as how to best equip us with education, we are not getting the best of the best of the best. Our education will always be second. We will always be questioned. We will always be misunderstood. And the reason why I was inspired to write this poem was a couple of things, right? Sean Battle and my nephew Nasir. Here is Sean Battle advocating not just for me, but for every poet in Essex County to be a part of Dodge. And this is a young man who looks like me, who has not learned hate, has not learned to be selfish, has learned that community comes first over all things. And then on the flip side of that, I have my sister telling me that my baby nephew, my great nephew, Nasir, is having some problems in his pre-K class. And although there's 4 educators in there and there's only 10 or 12 kids, they are saying that he needs to be on some form of medication because he's too hyper. And I kept saying, but he's 4. He's 4 years old. What do you mean he needs to be on medication? Do I need to go down there? I'm going down there because he learns differently. And if you know anything about development, you know that young boys tend to lag behind when it comes to young ladies. Like he was incapable of sitting down for long periods of time because of his age and who he was. And I'm not talking bad about anybody, but the teacher that was promoting or wanting him the most to be on medication did not look like me. And I wasn't going for any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You said a mouthful. I'm a former educator. I'm still an educator, but I'm retired from Newark Public Schools, over 20 years experience, and the things that you're talking about resonate with me so completely. So everything that you're saying it may seem like it's different branches, but they're all connected. It is a part of the psyche here in America. It is a part of how Black people and others have been conditioned to see Black males. That's why your poem is powerful and important. And I just want to talk about one more thing, based on something that you said. I'm an educator and medication for Black males.
Mm-hmm.
Out of control. 2 things. When you have one individual, I'm not sure if your nephew was in a small class or a large, but me as a general education teacher, 35 children. All children, not pieces of paper, not inanimate objects, and one adult. And the only thing you could come up with is medicate them.
Mm-hmm.
I came
No.
from a place that if the room is quiet, the child is not quote unquote okay. Children are supposed to make noise.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had
That's
one
right.
of the noisiest classrooms ever. I bet my life that you can pick my kids out of a crowd and ask them, what did you learn in her class? And I had a difficult subject. I had science. Did you like her class? Well, I may not have liked science, but I definitely like going to her class. I don't know all that goes
Mm-hmm.
into that, but just
Well,
at a firsthand view, that we have to really find other ways of treating
our
children.
kids.
Exactly.
Having
If
life,
we
that's my life.
are adamant about nurturing our youth, because these are going to be the people who are going to be the lawmakers, the policies, the caretakers, the social workers, the teachers of the future, then we have to give them all that we can give them at those very early, intimate ages where they are absorbing all things. He doesn't need to absorb that he's not good enough.
Wow, those are some powerful words from our featured guests here on When Women Speak podcast, the Whisper Shout episodes. And we're going to be moving on to our next guest, Dr. Leah
Soon
Jack.
to be, right? Let's
Yes, yes.
manifest that.
And we're
Yes,
going to throw it
yes.
out there. And she will be reading from her selection or her contribution to Whisper Shout, Seen and Unseen.
And I have the fortunate pleasure to be the last poem in this collection. So, Seen and Unseen. These are the songs to myself. My voice springs from a whisper, an overwhelming roar amongst the crowd. The voice brings the unseen to the seen. The voice makes the unseen to be seen. We have come together with the voice of those who are voiceless. We come together to ask the question. You can revisit the story. Can you? Will you? Over and again, shaped with each voice. With our voice, the story remains unchanged. We are interconnected, never to be unbroken. You want to be on your own, unable to be alone. We are made one of another, flesh of my flesh and all of that. You and me exist because we need to be. You are seen, me unseen, naked, unafraid, in the wilderness of what? What existence? Uncovered, unbothered. Can we reclaim our time? As long as my voice is heard, it doesn't matter if you can see me. It does not matter if you can hear me. Can you hear me? I speak for the seen and unseen. My life matters, and so does yours, and theirs, and mine, and yours, and theirs, ours.
Leah, snap it up, snap it up. Leah, this poem, Seen and Unseen, is a powerful meditation on identity, on voice, visibility, and collective existences. For me, it explores the tension between being seen and unseen, heard and unheard, alone and interconnected at the same time. You talk a lot about reclaiming the voice as both a personal and a communal tool for truth telling, healing, and resistance. I feel that there's a spiritual existence, that it's an undercurrent, maybe even a search for affirmation, belonging, and the right to be. Like in the poem, when you repeat and capitalize heard and matters, this sounds urgent to me. Without saying, we know the poem is strong in metaphors and connecting various people that need to be pulled in from hanging out there. What does it mean for you to be truly heard in a world that often overlooks both being seen and being heard? What does it mean to you?
Being a woman, Black woman in this country, I have gone through the process of always making sure that I'm heard, making sure that my voice is heard in a room, especially if I'm in the minority. It's something that I've experienced, I think, from when I was a kid. Majority of my classmates were white and male, and I was always in some type of debate or discussion, fiery discussion with my white male counterparts. And I never was nervous, scared about expressing myself. I was never conscious or self-conscious about my voice. My parents encouraged me to speak when I was little. They tell children to be seen and not heard. My parents always allowed me to be a part of the conversation. They always allowed me to ask questions. Adults always answered my questions. So I never thought that my voice would never be not valued or not paid attention to. And as I became a young woman and going into college, having the experience of believing and being very confident in my voice and in who I am, and even in my personhood, like the way that I look and how I express myself. I had a young professor or a professor. He was a graduate, I think, student getting his doctoral degree, and I remember talking to him at the end of class one time, and I was like, well, I think of myself as an intellectual. And the look that he gave me was kind of like, first of all, it was like questioning how could you consider yourself an intellectual? And then then it gave me an intimation of you have no voice in this in this intellect in any kind of intellectual discussion. Like it was a very dismissive look.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I questioned. I said, "You don't think that I'm intellectual? You don't think that I have, that I have some kind of critical thinking skills to be able to have any kind of discourse with you just because what? Because I'm younger than you, because I'm a girl, what,
Mhm.
whatever." And he was a black man. So that was the one instance that I ever got a response that questioned my intellect, my voice, my confidence, anything. And I was so taken aback by that. Fast forward to going into the corporate world and being around. I worked primarily for Time Inc. in a lot of the journals. I worked for Vibe magazine. I worked for parenting. I ended up at Fortune magazine working in their conferences division. And when I tell you that the value of my voice was so diminished that I felt like I couldn't fathom, not because I felt like I'm so great. Well, I always thought I was great. Just, I'm like, who doesn't love me? I'm the bomb. What are you talking about? Um, but my voice was so diminished in these corporate environments, and my personhood was diminished. It's not just that you are your voice as a woman, as a black woman, and I'm also, I know how to use, SAT words too. I know how to express myself very well. I'm a very articulate person, um, eloquent with my verbal discourse. And my voice was just always seen as unnecessary,
Mhm.
and or it was at least intimated to me through their actions.
Yep, exactly.
And I really, really, you know, as a young adult, having the foundation of being a young child who was always my voice was always confirmed and affirmed by my peers, or by even by some teachers, and especially by my parents. It was an awakening of, wow, this is what the world is really like.
Yes.
And then becoming an educator, well, working with as an academic advisor at New Jersey City University with primarily students who were first generation or coming from environments like Jersey City or Newark, where you had their guidance counselors telling them, you can't get into a 4-year institution, or you shouldn't bother going to college. You're not, college is not for you. And listening to them tell me these stories, and I'm like, oh no, your voice, your opinion, your story matters. And it is important, it is vital, not just here in this institution. Like, but even it's NJCU, New Jersey City University, is not exactly the ivory tower, but it's still an institution.
Yes.
And so to know that they had people who were supposed to be their encouragers, the people who were supposed to encourage them to move forward, to certify themselves in this world. We're basically saying to them, no, you don't matter. Your voice doesn't matter. Your existence doesn't matter.
It's a serious thing as women, and more specific as Black women, that this is a constant thing. We talked a little bit about a caste system. There is a caste system here. It's not invisible, but it's invisible. I don't know if you read the book Caste. I forgot the sister's first name, but the last name
Yeah.
Wilkerson.
Bell, I think it is. Is it Isabel?
Isabel,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, it really explains a lot. It explains a lot of the psyche that we may, because it's so digested within us, that we are not, it's not in the forefront of our brain. We don't recognize it, but we recognize it. Um,
Yes.
and being looked at as subservient or less than, where your opinion isn't even asked for in some places, but you having the strength and the knowledge that you are someone and your voice does matter.
The
It,
audacity.
exactly. And that's a
I
big
have the audacity
have the
to
audacity
use my voice and to not give two
about what you think and what
whatever about
someone's
whoever's
saying.
going to say. I've never walked into a room and felt inferior. I've never walked into a room and felt that I can't speak or that I shouldn't speak if I want to speak.
Yeah.
There have definitely been times when I have felt um unsure of myself.
Yes.
And
Constantly.
that part is where I have to say who's telling the narrative, who's
Yeah.
telling the story.
We have to claim that. We have to claim that back. We have to take that back.
Right.
I'm going to end this session of interviews with the two of you. I have two questions. So, Helena, if your poem was the only piece of work someone ever read, what do you hope they would carry with them?
I would want them to carry with them the knowledge that I'm putting into the poem, you know, because the one thing I love about writing in general is that you can look into the nuances of the human experience. So whether it's 100 years from now and I'm dead and gone, or next week, whoever is picking that up, I want them to be able to have that knowledge and be able to paint a picture, an accurate picture of what I'm talking about in the poem.
Mhm. Thank you. I think they do with that poem. I think that a lot of the lines, especially the repetition of Black Boys Learn Differently, if you don't remember anything in between, that one line will have you researching what does she mean by that and looking for reality checks or something in our physical world that they can see this actual statement in real life time. Leah, my question to you is, well, it's not really a question, it's a request. Could you kindly finish this sentence fragment for me? When women speak.
The world must listen.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Helena Lewis. Thank you, Dr. Leah Lyric Jackson.
I love it. I love it. I got my honorary degree. I got my honorary degree.
Yes, you do. I want to sincerely thank both of you
Thank you.
for adding your light to this anthology and to the world. Your voice in Whisper, Whisper, Shout is a necessary part of this collective roar. And to all our listeners, both our anthologies may be purchased directly from Amazon and Barnes& and Noble. We greatly appreciate your support, your support, your support. Again, the title,
Just like
Whisper,
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 whisper.
Shout. And please, whether you're whispering your truth or shouting it from the depths of your soul, know this: your voice matters, your voice matters, your voice matters. This has, and finally, I would be remiss not to recite the poem Whisper, Whisper, Shout for our current anthology. Mourning, mourning the voices of women who were muted across generations and honoring their legacy through the chant of whisper, whisper, shout. This is an elegy in the key of whisper, whisper, shout. 'Cause see, they buried her. They buried her beneath the hush. No tombstone, just a kitchen chair still warm with stories she never got to tell. Silence folded into her bones like linen, washed, wrung out, hung up to dry beside somebody else's power. Her no was rebranded as a maybe. Her yes dismissed before the echo reached the ceiling. She spoke only in sighs and lullabies, broken breaths, cracked cheeks of tears, in bruises that refused to rhyme. This this is for the women who had truth caught in their throats, choking on reverence, on roles, on love, on lost loves, on rules, who whispered into tin cups and paper walls, who wrote freedom in the margins of their Bibles and birth certificates with fatherless names. I weep for her. not in pity, but in rhythm, in rhyme, not in shame, but in solidarity. I whisper for her into the marrow of every girl who's ever been told, speak softer, not now, don't. I whisper, and then I shout. Shout with a voice gathered from centuries, from corner kitchens, from protest pulpits, from freedom marches and prison cells. Shout with lungs bruised with breathing. Shout because silence never saved a soul. This is for her, for them, for us. Whisper, whisper, shout. My name is Amira Shabazz Bilal, and I am the founder and facilitator of When Women Speak. This has been an excerpt from our current anthology, Whisper, Whisper, Shout. You can buy a copy on Amazon.com, on Barnes & Noble, and I hope to all of you out there that you take the time to whisper, whisper, and shout.